Hi, everybody. This is Mrs. Kennedy, and I'm here to read a little bit more of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. And of course, I'm reading from my illustrated edition that was illustrated beautifully by Jim Kay. So to recap, since it's been since before spring break, since we read part of our chapter book, Harry has been getting these owls bringing letters to him. And so Mr. Dursley has gone out to basically the furthest he could. He goes out to this shack in the middle of an island in the middle of the sea and tries to get away from these letters constantly coming because he does not want Harry to get them for some reason. Well, Hagrid, this big giant of a man, busts down the door at midnight on Harry's birthday and comes with the letter to deliver it himself that tells Harry that he is a wizard. And he's very shocked that the Dursleys have not shared any of this with him. And Hagrid's very angry that they have, that Harry doesn't know he's a wizard. He doesn't know that magic exists or anything like that. So right now we're in kind of that confrontation between the Dursleys and Hagrid about Harry being a wizard. And we're going to find out what happened to Harry's parents here in a second. And Hagrid has just sent off an owl telling Dumbledore that he's given the letter to Harry, Hagrid has sent off the owl saying he's given the letter to Harry and that they'll be coming to get their stuff in the morning so that he can go to Hogwarts, which is the school for witchcraft and wizardry. Harry realized his mouth was open and closed it quickly. "Where was I?" said Hagrid, but at that moment, Uncle Vernon, still ashen-faced but looking very angry, moved to the firelight. "He's not going," he said. Hagrid grunted. "I like to see a great muggle like you stop him," he said. "A what?" Harry said, interested. "A muggle," said Hagrid. It's what we call non-magic folk like them. And it's your bad luck that you grew up in a family of the biggest muggles I ever laid eyes on. We swore when we took him in we'd put a stop to this rubbish," said Uncle Vernon. "Swore we'd stamp it out of him. Wizard indeed." "You knew?" said Harry. "You knew I'm a wizard?" "No!" shrieked Aunt Petunia suddenly. "No, of course we knew. How could you not be? My dratted sister being what she was. Oh, she got a letter just like that and disappeared off to that school and came home every holiday with her pockets full of frog spawn, turning teacups into rats. I was the only one who saw her for what she was, a freak. But for my mother and father, oh no, it was Lily this and Lily that. They were proud of having a witch in the family." She stopped to draw a deep breath and then went on ranting. It seemed like she had been wanting to say all this for years. "Then she met that Potter at school and they left and got married and had you. And of course I knew you'd be just as the same. Just as strange, just as abnormal. And then, if you please, she went and got herself blown up and we got landed with you." Harry had gone very white. As soon as he found his voice, he said, "Blown up? You told me they died in a car crash." "A car crash?" roared Hagrid, jumping up so angrily that the Dursleys scuttled back into their corner. "How could a car crash kill Lily and James Potter? It's an outrage. It's a scandal. Harry Potter not knowing his own story when every kid in our world knows his name." "But why? What happened?" Harry asked urgently. The anger faded in Hagrid's face, and he looked suddenly anxious. "Never expected this," he said in a low, worried voice. "I had no idea when Dumbledore told me there might be trouble getting hold of you, how much you didn't know." "Hi, Harry, I don't know if I'm the right person to tell you, but someone's gotta. You can't go off to Hogwarts not knowing." He threw a dirty look at the Dursleys. "Well, it's best you know as much as I can tell you. Mind, I can't tell you everything. It's a great mystery, parts of it." He sat down and stared into the fireplace for a few seconds, then said, "It begins, I suppose, with a person called... But it's incredible you don't even know his name. Everyone in our world knows." "Who?" "Well, I don't like saying the name if I can help it. No one does. Why not? Open gargoyles, Harry. People are still scared. Blimey. This is difficult. See, there was this wizard who went bad. As bad as you could go. Worse. Worse than worse. His name was... Hagrid gulped, but no words came out. Could you write it down? Harry suggested. Nah, can't spell it. All right. Voldemort. Hagrid shuddered. Don't make me say it again. Anyway, this wizard, about 20 years ago now, started looking for followers. Got 'em too. Some were afraid. Some just wanted a bit of his power because he was getting himself power all right. Dark days, Harry. Didn't know who you could trust. Didn't dare get friendly with strange wizards or witches. Terrible things happened. He was taken over. Of course, some stood up to him, and he killed them. Horribly. One of the only safe places left was Hogwarts. Reckon Dumbledore's the only one you know who wasn't afraid of. Or was afraid of. Didn't dare try taking the school. Not just then, anyway. Now, your mom and dad were as good a witch and wizard as I ever knew. Head boy and girl at Hogwarts in their day. Suppose the mystery is why you know who never tried to get him on his side before. Probably knew they were too close to Dumbledore to want anything to do with him, with the dark side. Maybe he thought he could persuade him. Maybe he just wanted them out of the way. All anyone knows is he turned up in the village you were living on Halloween 10 years ago. He was just a year old. He came to your house and Hagrid suddenly pulled out a very dirty, spotted handkerchief and blew his nose with the sound of like a foghorn. Sorry, but it's sad. Knew your mom and dad and nicer people you couldn't find. Anyway, you know who killed him. And then, and this is the real mystery of the thing, he tried to kill you too. Wanted to make a clean job of it, I suppose, or maybe he just liked killing by then. But he couldn't do it. Never wondered how you got that mark on your forehead? That's no ordinary cut. That's what you get when a powerful, evil curse touches you. Took care of your mom and dad and your house even. But it didn't work on you. And that's why you're famous, Harry. No one ever lived after he decided to kill him. No one except you. And he killed some of the best witches and wizards of the age. The McKinnons, the Bones, the Pruitts. And you was only a baby. And you lived. Something very painful was going on in Harry's mind. As Hagrid's story came to a close, he saw again the blinding flash of green light, more clearly than he ever had remembered it before. And he remembered something else for the first time in his life. A high, cold, cruel laugh. Hagrid was watching him sadly. Took you from the ruined house myself on Dumbledore's orders. Brought you to this lot. Load of tosh, said Uncle Vernon. Harry jumped. He had almost forgotten the Dursleys were there. Uncle Vernon certainly seemed to have got back his courage. He was glaring at Hagrid, and his fists were clenched. Now you listen here, boy, he snarled. I accept that there's something strange about you, and probably nothing a good beating wouldn't have cured. And as for all of this, your parents, well, they were weirdos. No denying it. And the world's better off without them, in my opinion. Ask for all they got. Getting mixed up with these wizarding types, just what I'd expected. Always knew they came to a sticky end. But at that moment, Hagrid leapt from the sofa and drew back a battered pink umbrella from inside his coat. Pointing it at Uncle Vernon like a sword, he said, I'm warning you, Dursley. I'm warning you one more word. In danger of being speared at the end of an umbrella by a bearded giant, Uncle Vernon's courage failed again. He flattened himself against the wall and fell silent. That's better, said Hagrid, breathing heavily and sitting back down on the sofa, which at this time sagged right down to the floor. Harry, meanwhile, still had questions to ask, hundreds of them. But what happened to Sorry, I mean, you know who. Good question, Harry. Disappeared, vanished. Same night he tried to kill you. Makes you even more famous. That's the biggest mystery. See, he was getting more and more powerful. Why'd he go? Some say he died. Cult swallowed, in my opinion. Don't know if he had enough human left in him to die. Some say he's still out there biding his time, but I don't believe it. People who was on his side came back to ours. Some of them came out of kind of trances. Don't reckon they could have done that if he was coming back. Most of us reckon he's still out there somewhere, but he's lost his powers. Too weak to carry on. Because something about you finished him, Harry. There was something going on that night he hadn't counted on. I don't know what it is. No one does, but something about you stumped him all right. Hagrid looked at Harry with warmth and respect blazing in his eyes, but Harry, instead of feeling pleased and proud, felt quite sure there had been a horrible mistake. A wizard? Him? How could that possibly be? He had spent his whole life being clotted by Dudley and bullied by Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon. If he was really a wizard, why hadn't they been turned into warty toads every time they tried to lock him up in his cupboard? If he had once defeated the greatest sorcerer in the world, how come Dudley had always been able to kick him around like a football? Hagrid, he said quietly, I think you must have made a mistake. I don't think I can be a wizard. To his surprise, Hagrid chuckled. Not a wizard, eh? You ever made things happen when you were scared or angry? Harry looked into the fire, and now that he came to think about it, every odd thing that had ever made his aunt and uncle furious with him had happened when he, Harry, had been upset or angry. Chased by Dudley's gang, he had somehow found himself out of their reach. Dreading to go to school with that ridiculous haircut, he managed to make it grow back. And the very last time Dudley had hit him, hadn't he got his revenge without even realizing he was doing it? Hadn't he set a boa constrictor on him? Harry looked back at Hagrid, smiling, and saw Hagrid was positively beaming at him. See, he said, Harry Potter, not a wizard. You wait, you'll be right famous at Hogwarts. But Uncle Vernon wasn't going to give in without a fight. Haven't I told you he's not going? He hissed. He's going to Stonewall High, and he'll be grateful for it. I've read those letters, and he needs all sorts of rubbish, spell books and wands, and if he wants to go, a great muggle like you won't stop him, growled Hagrid. Stop Lily and James Potter's son going to Hogwarts. You're mad. His name's been down ever since he was born. He's off to the finest school of witchcraft and wizardry in the world. 7 years there, and he won't know himself. He'll be with youngsters of his own sort for a change, and he'll be under the greatest headmaster Hogwarts ever had, Albus Dumbledore. I'm not paying for some crackpot old fool to teach him magic tricks, yelled Uncle Vernon. But he had finally gone too far. Hagrid seized his umbrella and whirled it over his head. Never, he thundered, insult Albus Dumbledore in front of me. He brought the umbrella swishing down through the air and pointed it at Dudley. There was a flash of violet light, a sound like a firecracker, a sharp squeal, and the next second, Dudley was dancing on the spot with his hands clasped over his fat bottom, howling in pain. When he turned his back on them, Harry saw a curly pig's tail poking through the holes in his trouser. Uncle Vernon roared, pulling Aunt Petunia and Dudley into the other room. He cast one terrified look at Hagrid and slammed the door behind them. Hagrid looked down at his umbrella and stroked his beard. Should have lost me temper, he said. But it didn't work anyway. He meant to turn him into a pig. But I suppose he was so much like a pig anyway, there wasn't much left to do. He cast a sideways look at Harry under bushy eyebrows. Be grateful if you didn't mention it to anyone at Hogwarts, he said. I am, not supposed to do magic, strictly speaking, and I was allowed to do a bit to follow you and get your letter and stuff, and one of the reasons I've been so keen to take the job. Why aren't you supposed to do magic? Asked Harry. Oh, well, I was at Hogwarts myself, but I got expelled, to tell you the truth, and in my 3rd year, they snapped me wand in half and everything, but Dumbledore let me stay on as gamekeeper. Great man, Dumbledore. Why were you expelled? It's getting late and we've got lots to do tomorrow, Hagrid said loudly. Gotta get up to town, get all your books and all that. He took off his thick black coat and threw it to Harry. You can keep under that, he said. Don't mind if it wriggles a bit. I think I still have a couple of dormice in the pockets. So I love this illustration because it's Hagrid using his wand here, or his umbrella, to give Dudley a pigtail. And so this is another beautiful illustration here of the shack in the middle of the sea that Dursley thought would be safe. And that is the end of chapter 4. So when we read next, we will start on chapter 5, Diagon Alley, which is a place that I would love to visit. I hope you guys had a great spring break and had a wonderful day. And I will see you next time. Always keep reading.